Today's March 15th, 2025. My name is Derek Woods, and I'm a recovering drug and porn addict. 604 days sober. I just watched the movie Thanks for Sharing. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend anybody to see it, because whether you're struggling with addiction, any kind in your life, even if you're not, I'm sure you know somebody in your life that probably did or is, or at some point you will. And it was truly an unbelievable movie. I appreciated that there is such a movie with famous Hollywood stars like Mark Ruffalo and Gwyneth Paltrow and Tim Robbins and stuff that covers sex addiction. That's pretty rare, I feel like. But I really feel like it just covered like all addiction, and meetings and what the fellowship does. And I don't have like a specific message that I wanted to say. I've been a part of SAA and NA and AA at various points in my life, and especially for the past year and 7 or 8 months before I begin this new really tough journey in my life. And I've taken it seriously for the first time in my life, but since I take it so seriously, there's times that I try to understand what more I can get out of it, or if I'm thinking deep enough, or, if I'm like committed enough, like, and that's just me trying to be harder and harder on myself, I think I've mentioned this one time before in another video, but when I got out of rehab in 2019, when I was still with my wife, I took all my drug paraphernalia and I put it in a fire and we burned it. And in this movie, that's what they do in a scene. Pink is in the movie, the musician, and Josh Gad, and they take all of his porn and they burn it. And it's just weird because I've actually done that before when I first got here. Anything that I had left, at least as far as I know. And I've often talked about how, important that is. And, the movie's good at making serious things, but, making a movie and making it sort of funny and making light of it and stuff. And I think what the movie really emphasizes that I've learned that I never understood before, like, and why I think, maybe I just wasn't ready, so I don't want to make it down to and boil it down to one thing, you know what I mean? But that it's not really about the meeting itself, is what I've come to learn. Because, unfortunately, in my time here, I haven't been allowed, by law to do much more than phone meetings until recently, until a couple months ago when I was allowed to start going to a in-person SA meeting. And in Neptune, New Jersey on Friday nights. And it's really meant a lot to me. This week alone, I made like 4 phone calls to different people. And they were like hour-long phone calls. And then hung out with the people after the meeting this week, the week before that. And talked. And I know people always say, oh, the fellowship. And to me, that was always just like a word. You know, almost like kind of like a corny word. But I get what it means now. Like, it's really just friends. It's really just people that understand you. It's really just being able to sit around, whether it be during a meeting, before a meeting, after a meeting, or on a phone call, with a person that isn't judging you, that understands where you've come from, you know, that you've made a lot of mistakes in your past and that you want to change. And that the focus is on, you know, what can I do better today? You know, you're not making phone calls to pat each other on the back. You know, you're not calling somebody to say, hey, I was sober today, goodbye. You know, you're making phone calls usually because you're dealing with something. Doesn't mean that you're not sober, you know. It just means you're dealing with something. For me, whether it be shame or guilt or having trouble letting go of something, or trying to understand why something's happening in the present, you know, and not going better for you, or whatever the case might be, or what more you could do. You know, I know a lot of people in meetings like talk about their jobs. I don't have a job, you know. I can't have a job. And I kind of have like a different path than most people in meetings. And sometimes it does get depressing for me. You know, when I go to these meetings, sometimes it makes me feel good to be able to help other people, and sometimes it's depressing that my story is always, sometimes I don't even offer it up. Sometimes I'll just be sitting with a few guys at a diner or talking with them after the meeting, you know, and telling them why I can only go to the Friday night meeting and I can't go to any others, and what's about to happen to me. And they all kind of have the same reaction of like, wow, you know, and I'm glad it helps them. You know, sometimes it's tough for me. But I'm glad I finally understand, you know, what the fellowship is. The movie reminded me of the little aspects that I really appreciate about meetings. Like when you're truly sober and you get that 1 month chip, or you get that 1 year chip, like I got last July. I got it mailed to me from my sponsor and his home group, even though I was only doing phone meetings. And the guy that sent it to me didn't even really know me, but he knew my sponsor, and he drew guitars on it. You know, and it's only 1 year chip I've ever received. And for me, it's a 1 year mostly sober of drugs, but you know, it's also 1 year sober of pornography and I guess sex addiction, whatever specifically that is for the person, you know, dealing with it. And there's a true pride to that when you're telling the truth. And there's a good feeling when, you know, guys invite you afterwards to go to a diner to hang out and talk and tell you that there's movies like Thanks for Sharing that you should check out. Because that's the only reason I knew what it was and watched it. Because I think generally, if you're in this fellowship, or if you're coming to these meetings, maybe your life isn't terrible, but your life's probably reached a pretty low point where maybe you've lost some friends. Maybe you've had some trouble making some friends. Maybe, you know, you've lost your family. Maybe you lost a spouse because of what you did, whatever. Whether you're a drug addict, whether you're a sex addict, porn addict, food addict, gambling addict, whatever. And so it's a place for you to feel like you belong. It's a place to feel like you're not alone. and you continue to grow this network of like people that you know. And I'm going to try to continue that in prison. I'm going to miss this thing that unfortunately I was only able to start in January. But I'm glad I got to see it, because it's different than just being on the phone and attending meetings that way. There is like a special fellowship. There is something really cool to seeing a guy come into a meeting basically crying and sharing his story because he thinks the way he's done is worse than everybody else, or the way he's done is screwed up his life more than everybody else, doing something terrible with porn or hurting his wife or whatever. And then you can share and tell him about your story, and on his own accord, he turns to you and says, damn, man, you're strong. Sometimes you need to hear that, like, because that all you've done is fuck up all your life, and you're not really sitting there thinking about how you're strong or anything like that. You're kind of thinking about how you've just fucked everything up, and but other people see that. Sometimes, I think other people see that how I'm carrying myself and the way that I'm trying to get through this, maybe is a sort of beacon to them. I mean, a guy was telling me that last night, to some degree. And that feels good, and I sincerely hope I can continue that going forward. I just want to say every video that I've made that isn't a music video is sincerely solely only so I can figure out what happened in my life. So I can figure out how to continue to be this better person. To be honest. To hopefully help my son. To help anybody out there that struggles with anything. That was my only purpose for doing it. I had no idea how long this journey would be, being able to be here. And I had no idea how I would feel, because I've never been sober this long in my adult life. Ever. I'm frankly, in a couple months, about to be sober double the length of time I've ever been sober in my entire life. I'm about to be sober for 2 years, And it's tough when your dad's health is really bad. And you're going to prison and you don't know if you're ever going to see him again. You don't know if you're going to be allowed to go to his funeral. They're weird things to think about. Not that I don't deserve it. I deserve, everything that's happening to me. I'd like to think, trust me, there's times that I get really frustrated and I look at God and up to God and I say, I don't get it, I don't get why things had to be this bad for me or for everybody else that hurt. I don't understand why it had to be this bad. But I'd like to think that it's helping me grow. But all the videos I've made, all the ones before this, whether they were made 6 months into sobriety, a year into my sobriety, a year and a half into my sobriety, or right up until now, they were just made to help myself, to help others, to sincerely, document how I feel like I have grown. And I can't wait to show more people. This version of me, this version of me that people at meetings, tell me that they see as strong. Because I know I am stronger. I'm going to need to continue to have strength. I'm going to need to continue to grow. I'm going to need to continue to build on this. I'm going to go through much harder times in my life ahead, and they're going to require a lot of strength. But they've been important for me to make. They've been important for me to be able to take real, self-inventory of myself. And, for the sake of the people that were in my life before, there's times that I don't get into a lot of detail. There's times I try to get into some, but all I know is that, this is who I want to be. I can't wait for that day again where I get to walk into meetings as a free man and feel that camaraderie, feel that fellowship, continue to network and meet people and learn from other people's stories and tell people about my story. It really means something to me. It really does. Other than being there for my son and being a great dad for my son, the best dad I could possibly be, it really is the most important thing. And people always say that you should put your sobriety first. If I'm not putting it first, I'm putting it 1A behind my son, that's for sure. And really, for my son, I'm pretty much putting it first because that's what, he deserves and needs too. So, any videos you may see after this, that was the goal. If for some reason my dad doesn't make it through his health issues that he's having, I just want to say how much I love him. How much I appreciate the times that we've had to talk about sports, to talk about music, the support he's given me as a musician. There's a playlist of songs that I have that he's told me about that he wants to be played at his funeral. A number of them are George Harrison. There's Callin' Elvis by Dire Straits. There's Beyond Any Telescope by the Face Corporation. There's a list of about 15 or 20 that if I'm not around or I'm not allowed to go to his funeral, that I'd like to pass on to somebody because I know he has expressed to me that's what he wants. And trust me, I hope that, this isn't something that has to be relevant for a long time. But I'm in a very strange situation that I caused, and that's my fault. So I wanted to talk about it while I had a chance. Throughout this time, when I've made videos, there's been times that I've talked about the difficulty of things. There's been times that I've talked about the difficulty I've caused others, obviously. There's been times I've talked about all the struggles of this. There's been times I've talked about what I've tried to hopefully help my parents with and teach them a little bit from this horrible, experience that I created and everything. But I just wanted everybody to know at the end of the day, and I'm just going to work as hard as I can for the rest of my life to make sure that the best version of me is present everywhere I am for the rest of my life. And that I can continue to serve as this hopefully helpful, honest, empathetic, much better version of me. That can go to meetings and share a story, that can, maybe get sponsees one day and help them, that can hopefully speak at events or whatever. But, I just want to say that, throughout all of this, that's my main goal, to continually become a better human being. I'm far from a finished product. I can't wait to feel like I'm becoming more and more of one all the time. I can't wait to have more of that fellowship that I've gained. More of that feeling, that good feeling inside of like friendship and belonging, for all the right reasons. And just knowing that I'm doing the right thing. And, I don't know what's going to happen with my parents' life and their health. I pray for them. I hope that they're both around when I get out of all this so I can continue to help them. If they're not, I love them both. I thank them both for this opportunity, to have grown up finally. I'm obviously so sorry to my ex-wife and my son that it's all happened. I'm praying that, at the end of the day, a long time from now, we can all kind of say that this was the best thing to happen. And I guess I'd just say, thanks for letting me share. So for Derek Woods, March 15th, 2025. I will always be a recovering drug and porn addict. But it's about what I do with it from here that matters. Thanks.
And as time goes on, they jog my memory. There'd be more songs that right at the moment it didn't not hit me immediately, but
I'm trying to think of all the ones that you played a lot,
right,
that like were to me synonymous with
right.
just living here and
Yes.
hearing in the morning on a Saturday when
Right.
you'd be pumping music. I guess there'd probably be no Police or Led Zeppelin
There really isn't any
that stand out
Led
to you,
Zeppelin song that's like,
other than the song remains the same.
that because I just love the
guitar.
But they're great. But oh yes, there is one. I stand corrected. It's an all-time favorite. It's called Bron Eor. It's like Welsh words.
Okay.
And it's the name of a cottage or a place where they would go to get away and
Right.
take little vacations. and where they also have their own little recording studio in there, and it's an instrumental.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And if you heard it, you would be like, "Oh yes."
Yeah.
So that's an all-time. Just thinking of it.
Would there be any of the Face Corporation on there?
Well, the Face Corporation, the greatest song of all time was
Starting a year off right, or standing at the
The
gates?
Microscope.
Oh, Beyond Any Telescope.
Beyond Any Telescope. To me,
Thank you.
That's up there with the greatest of the songs I'm giving to you with
That's very
Beatles, Mason.
That's
and
very
all
kind that you're
Because
putting me in that.
To me, it's unbelievably profound. It's you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Like everything that could ever be, it's either captured through a telescope or a microscope. It's awesome. Of course, and that little ditty you wrote, starting
A year off right.
I mean, that's a piece of classical music, unbelievable.
Thank you, Dad.
No, it is.
Thank you.
As a music lover, it's just like what an exquisite little ditty.
That's song one on my
Right.
on the last CD I'm releasing. The Face Corporation does instrumentals, which is dedicated to you.
That one is beautiful, just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.